Hey TWC family, we're here with your Monday morning update, and I'm here with Pastor Justin. He just got done preaching week 2 of White Flag, and we're talking about the idea of surrender to God through the story of Jonah, and I love this. And so we're just going to go a little bit deeper today with just a few questions that I'm going to ask Justin, and he's going to answer for you on the spot right now.
All right.
And so Justin, my first question is, you started off your message with a question to all of us. You said, look, why do I have to learn things the hard way? And I think that's a question we all ask a lot. What is something that you had to learn personally the hard way in life?
Okay, so I may get in trouble for saying this because anytime I use my kids, I pay them $1. So
Hey,
I think it would be about parenting. I tend to parent my kids the same way, and it's a lesson, honestly, I'm still learning, and I'm a knucklehead. I'm stubborn. I keep falling back into that trap, and so my kids would attest that I mess up in this area all the time. So I think that would be for me. The parenting my kids the same way, through the same grid, through the same lens, and not seeing them and being more strategic in how I parent based on their personality and what works for them.
Well, I love that you're saying that, and then the story of Jonah, the two things fit together as far as just because it's hard, we can still learn something from it.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's over and I'm done with this.
Right.
We can grow and learn from it. And I think that's so cool.
Right.
You also said this, you said this quote in the middle of it, and I love this. I wrote it down, and you said, you can run from God, but you can't outrun God. Now, are there maybe some red flags that we can be watching out for that can signal to us, hey, I might be running from God in this area of my life, and here's something to watch out for, like a red flag? Or is there something that you could give us to watch out for in our own lives?
And I want to clarify that I stole that from John's message the previous week. So not mine, John's, but it's true. And one of the ways that's a red flag that you're running from God, I think it's so dangerous, is isolation, which I think is fascinating to talk about isolation right now because our government and state governments and the CDC is saying y'all need to be kind of isolated. Though we can physically should distance ourselves, like they're saying, we shouldn't, in a sense, socially distance. We shouldn't isolate ourselves to the point of not calling, not texting, not connecting, because we were made for community. And one of the biggest red flags is when you find yourself isolating. Now, some of you introverts out there love isolating. It's different as you're running from something and needing to recharge, okay? So if you're an introvert, you're in a party for a little bit, you need to recharge by yourself, that's fine. But the most important thing is if you're running from something, as in not wanting to have a conversation, isolating yourself so you don't have to deal with an issue, that is an absolute huge red flag, and that's where it's a destructive path.
Okay.
It puts us down to really bad places when we're in isolation.
So if we find ourselves in the middle of that isolation, what would you say is like a first practical step that we can take towards that surrender and instead of running, but just surrendering to God?
Well, I think your desperation for change has to supersede your, shame, guilt. And I know by talking to someone about the thing that you're shameful of or the thing that you're guilty of, and you're running from that, I think it's important for you that the desperation of change, that I'm not going to change through isolation, I change with community. And I would say reach out. A friend that loves Jesus, anybody here up at the staff wants to help you. Even we may be a stranger to you, you may never have been met before, but we want to see you grow in your faith. And so even if it's reaching out to a pastor you've never met before, or maybe you shook their hand one time, I still think that desperation of I want to change has to supersede guilt or shame. And don't allow guilt and shame to keep you isolated from the community that can actually help you reconnect with God.
Got it. I like that. That's great. So I have one more question for you to close this off. Sometimes I've found it personally when I'm struggling with something that, like Jonah, I want to run from it, and I can find myself distancing myself from it, and I've run so far that I feel like it's dealt with, but I never surrendered it, and so it just keeps coming back. how do we know whether we've just run really far from something and we're maybe out of it for a season versus I've truly surrendered this and I'm done with it?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure if I'm going to fully give a satisfactory answer to such a question, because I think it's more like a tension you live in.
Okay.
A tension that you're always going to wonder, am I just running from something, or have I really surrendered it to God? I think there's levels of surrender. There's certain superficial levels of surrender at a church service where, like, I surrender. Then I'm like, I'm not so sure. So I think there's levels of that, and it's a tension. If it keeps coming back, have you truly surrendered? You know, I think there is a certain level of closure you're going to have where it's no longer the issue that's the main thing, but you have a sense of victory over it. And I don't know what that looks like for each person or every issue, but I know that that's where God wants to lead us. And I don't think it's just a one statement. I don't think it's just one prayer. I think it's a lifetime for some of us in certain areas to continue to surrender. And every time it comes back up, have the difficult conversation, have the awkward confession, bring an accountability in it that's willing to just put, the more light you have on it, the less power it has over you.
Awesome. I love that. Well, that's all the questions I had for you from your sermon. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us for just a few moments, and we miss you guys a lot. We cannot wait to be back with everybody.
Hopefully very soon.
Yes. Very soon. All right, we'll see you guys later.